Chapter 1: The War Background and the Turning Point at the Kupyansk Belt. The war in Ukraine has entered its fourth year, with countless unpredictable changes, but August 22, 2025 can be considered one of the new milestones, opening up many controversies and strategic analyses. Russia announced that it had broken through the defense line at the Kupyansk Belt, while Kiev immediately launched fierce counterattacks. To understand the significance of this event, we need to look at it from three aspects: the historical context, the military causes, and the strategic importance of Kupyansk. 1. Kupyansk, a knot on the war map. Kupyansk is a small city in eastern Ukraine, but it has a particularly important position. It is like a logistical gateway, connecting railways and roads, ensuring the supply of supplies to the Ukrainian army in the Kharkov and Donbass regions. Since 2022, Kupyansk has become the focus of contention, changing hands many times, and then turning into a stubborn battlefield that neither Russia nor Ukraine wants to ignore. If we compare it with a humorous example for easy visualization, Kupyansk in the Ukraine war is like a bottleneck in a crowded party. Whoever holds that bottleneck will control the flow of the party. And in this war, the flow is logistics and the ability to mobilize forces. Russia understands that clearly, and Ukraine cannot ignore it. 2. Reasons why Russia decided to attack in Kupyansk. There are three main reasons why Russia is stepping up its attack in Kupyansk at this time. First, political and psychological pressure. After months of stalemate, Moscow needs a victory to prove that their campaign still maintains the initiative. While Kiev is trying to call for more aid from the West, a victory at Kupyansk could help Russia score points at the international negotiating table. Second, logistical advantage. Russia currently controls many supply routes through Luhansk and Donetsk. If they take Kupyansk, they can block Ukraine's ability to transfer troops and weapons from west to east, making Kiev's defense line in Kharkov fragile. 3. Dispersing Ukrainian forces. By launching a major attack at Kupyansk, Russia forces Ukraine to withdraw troops from other directions such as Zaporizhia or Donetsk. This is a classic divide-the-fire tactic, used many times in history, from Napoleon's campaign to World War II. 4. How Russia launched the attack. According to military sources, the Russian army used a combined tactic. Artillery fired heavily, then deployed tanks and mechanized infantry to the outskirts of Kupyansk. In particular, the use of reconnaissance drones helped them detect and destroy many ammunition depots and troop gathering points of Ukraine. A Ukrainian officer once admitted, "We felt like every movement was seen from the sky." The situation reminiscent of the campaigns in World War II, when the German Air Force paralyzed the Soviet supply lines by destroying stations and fuel depots. History seemed to repeat itself, but this time the eyes of the gods were not pilots, but small drones hovering. 5. Ukraine's reaction. Immediately after Russia announced that it had penetrated the defense perimeter, Ukraine immediately denied the information and affirmed that it was only a local attack, not changing the situation. However, Kiev did not respond with words only. They quickly organized a counterattack with rocket artillery and long-range missiles aimed at the Russian troop concentration near Kupyansk. It is noteworthy that Ukraine is now increasingly relying on weapons aid from the West, from HIMARS artillery systems to suicide drones. This is both an advantage and a weakness. The advantage is having modern technology, but the weakness is that the supply is completely dependent on the wallets and politics of Europe and the US. 5. The significance of the turning point. The Kupyansk incident is not simply a battle. It carries three layers of meaning. Militarily, if Russia holds the breakthrough zone, Ukraine will lose an important logistics line. This could cause other defense lines to collapse in a chain reaction. Politically, the victory in Kupyansk will help Russia improve its position when negotiating with the West. Psychologically, both sides want to prove to their people and allies that they are still in control of the game. 6. A little humor to end the chapter. It can be said that the situation in Kupyansk is like a chess game in which Russia and Ukraine are both trying their best. Russia is trying to launch a checkmate move, while Ukraine is counterattacking to prolong the game. But unlike chess, where the queen or rook has absolute power, in Kupyansk, the pawns, that is, ordinary soldiers, are the ones who suffer the most. Imagine a Ukrainian soldier taking shelter in a trench, hearing the news that Russia has penetrated the Kupyansk defense line. The feeling is probably no different than hearing that his favorite football team has just lost 5 goals in a row. But right after that, he is ordered to counterattack. So from a state of misery to switch to biting the bullet and playing extra time. That is the harsh but also dramatic reality of war.
Chapter 2. Russia breaks through the Kupyansk belt, the most intense confrontation since the beginning of 2025. If in Chapter 1 we saw a panoramic picture of the Ukrainian front in recent months, then in Chapter 2 the situation has become especially serious when Russia suddenly accelerated and broke through the Kupyansk belt, a defense line that is considered Ukraine's steel shield. 1. Why is Kupyansk so important? To understand the significance of this event, we need to look back at the war map. Kupyansk is located in the northeast of Ukraine, near the border with Russia. This is a railway hub, a logistics center, and also the gateway to the Kharkiv region, which has witnessed fierce battles since 2022. To make a joke, if the battlefield is a chess game, then Kupyansk is the important chariot. Losing it means the entire chessboard is exposed. For more than a year, Ukraine has worked hard to build a multi-layered defense system here, with underground bunkers, checkpoints, and dense minefields. But just in a few days, Russia announced that it had penetrated this steel ring. The question is, how did the seemingly impossible become a reality? 2. How Russia attacks, the power of sledgehammer combined with UAVs. Unlike traditional attacks, Russia this time used a rather hybrid tactic, using heavy artillery to continuously bombard while deploying a series of suicide UAVs. The UAVs here play a reconnaissance role, guiding the artillery more accurately and directly attacking Ukrainian tanks and armored vehicles. A Ukrainian soldier had to admit in the Western press, "We are not afraid of big artillery like UAVs. We know how to dodge artillery, but UAVs buzz overhead all day long, never quiet." This shows that while many still consider UAVs to be cheap games, in reality, they have become an equal and even superior threat to heavy weapons. 3. How did Ukraine react? Immediately after the Kupyansk perimeter was breached, Kiev immediately launched a counterattack. Elite brigades were sent to block Russia's advance. But like a long-distance runner, when they run out of steam, it is very difficult to regain their form. Ukraine is facing a difficult problem. If they concentrate all their troops to hold Kupyansk, they risk exposing other fronts. But if they abandon Kupyansk, the strategic consequences will be extremely serious. This dilemma makes the war even more fierce. 4. The significance of the Kupyansk turning point. For Russia, this is a symbolic success, proving that Ukraine's defense lines are not impregnable. For Ukraine, this is a warning that fixed defense strategies can be neutralized by the combination of UAV technology and traditional firepower. For the world, the Battle of Kupyansk is a typical example of the change of modern warfare, where UAVs can play a decisive role no less than tanks or self-propelled artillery. Chapter 3. Kiev counterattack. Where will the future of Ukrainian war go? 1. Kiev counterattack, reenacting the shuttle war. Immediately after Russia announced the Kupyansk breakthrough, Ukraine launched a series of counterattacks. Like a basketball player who was scored by their opponent, Kiev immediately sought to recoup the points so as not to fall far behind. They used a dispersion tactic. Instead of concentrating a large force to counterattack in one direction, Ukraine divided its units, attacked quickly, and retreated, aiming to wear down Russian forces. Some long-range UAVs were also launched by Ukraine deep into Russian territory, targeting fuel depots and military bases as a way to send the message, "Don't think that only you know how to use UAVs." 2. The power of spirit and media. War is not only about guns and bullets, but also about spiritual warfare. Ukraine understands this well, so every time there is a small successful counterattack, they widely publicize it to create a spiritual effect, both domestically and internationally. On the contrary, Russia does not miss the opportunity. Just a video of a UAV attacking a Ukrainian tank spreading on social media is enough to create the impression that the technological advantage has completely tilted towards Russia. It can be seen that, in addition to the Kupyansk battlefield, there is another virtual battlefield on social media, where likes and shares are sometimes as powerful as missiles. 3. The future: UAV war or total war. The key point that the whole world is watching is whether the Kupyansk incident is the turning point that brings the Ukrainian war into the era of full-scale UAVs. If UAVs prove to be overwhelming, it is very likely that in the next few years, countries will reduce their investment in tanks and self-propelled artillery and switch to armed UAVs and suicide UAVs. If UAVs are still just the spice to support traditional firepower, the Ukraine war will continue to be a mixture of new and classic technology. A military expert has commented quite wittily, "Tanks were the kings of the 20th century battlefield, but UAVs are challenging that throne in the 21st century." 4. Significance to the world. Not only Ukraine, but other countries from the Middle East to Asia are also watching closely, because the results in Kupyansk will become a textbook for future warfare. How to defend against UAVs, how to combine UAVs with artillery, and how to maintain morale in the age of cyber war. 5. The end: a message from the battlefield. The Battle of Kupyansk is not only a story between Russia and Ukraine, but also a mirror for the world about how war is changing. From a ring of steel that was penetrated to unrelenting counterattacks, we see one thing clearly: nothing is constant in modern warfare. Technology, spirit, and tactics can all turn the tide overnight. Summary of the entire main content. Russia penetrates the Kupyansk ring, one of Ukraine's most fortified defense lines. Ukraine immediately counterattacks, turning the battlefield into a tense shuttle battle. UAVs have emerged as a game-changing weapon, forcing the world to re-evaluate military doctrine. The future of war may lean towards UAVs or continue to be a mixture of new and traditional weapons. Conclusion and call to action. The Ukraine war is not over yet, and Kupyansk is just a chapter in a long book full of blood and tears. But from this story, we understand that the world is entering a new era of war, where a small UAV can change the international situation. If you are interested in history, war, and lessons from reality, please like, share, and subscribe to History and War channel so you don't miss any analysis. Each of your support is a source of motivation for us to continue to bring quality content that is both profound and easy to understand.